Hi, and welcome to the second episode of the Science Fiction Affliction. I'm your host, Jay Oldenkamp. And then this week's episode is going to be about The Expanse. Now, I know I did say this week's episode was going to be about cyberpunk, but I decided to put that one off until the Blade Runner 2049 release comes a bit sooner, so it'll be towards October or late September.
Way to fucking ruin it.
Anyway, like I said before, this week's topic is The Expanse, and The Expanse is a critically acclaimed series of books and a very well adapted television show. As of this year, the book series has been nominated for a Hugo Award for the best series. Wait, what's a Hugo Award? Luckily, I can explain this. The Hugo Award, according to the official website, is an award for excellence in the field of science fiction and fantasy. Now, this award first started in 1953 and became more prominent since 1955. Now, let's get to the main topic here. Now, let's go to the books. There are 7 current books in the series, with the 8th one that's slated later for next year. On top of the books, there are 5 different short stories or novellas. And the books are Leviathan Wakes, the Caliban's War, Abaddon's Gate, Sibylla Burn, Nemesis Games, Babylon's Ashes, and Persepolis Rising. And now the novellas or short stories are The Butcher of Anderson Station, Gods of Risk, Drive, The Churn, Vital Abyss, and Strange Dogs. These have all been penned by James S.A. Corey, which is actually a pen name for 2 authors, which are Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank. And these books I've only read up to the 5th book, which is Nemesis Games, and they're really good. They're more than just science, like your science fiction stuff. Like the first book, like centers around the main crew you'll meet, which I'll talk about later, and then this detective, and it's more of like a mystery, and they're trying to determine and solve what happened because to this one ship that blew up, and these strange events of this Proto Molecule, which you'll find out about later in the book series, and just the strange events that are happening within the space. So, what is The Expanse? Well, first of all, it's a space opera set 200 years in the future. Now, if you don't know what a space opera is, it's not just a bunch of people sitting in space. It's more than that. According to Goodreads, a space opera is a subgenre of speculative fiction or science fiction that emphasizes romantic, often melodramatic adventure, set mainly or entirely in space. It generally involving conflict between opponents possessing powerful and sometimes quite fanciful technologies and abilities.
So it's not a musical?
No, it's not a musical whatsoever. So
Damn it. You just lost me.
Damn it. And perhaps the most significant trait of space opera is that the settings, characters, battles, powers, and themes tend to be at a very large scale. And The Expanse very well does do this. Within The Expanse, there are multiple facets of factions between like Earth, the Martians, and then the outer planets. So alliance, which is called the OPA, and there's many little splinter factions within the OPA as well. Anyway, let's go back. Like I said, there are several main factions. The main factions are the United Nations, which are the Earthers. There's the Martians, which of course are based off on Mars, and OPA, like I said before, are the outer planets, and they're often called the Belters. The Earthers, the slang term for the United Nations people living on Earth, are not as technologically advanced as the Martians, but they are probably the most prejudiced against anyone who wasn't born on Earth. Also, the people of Earth have a larger military, but again, they are not as advanced as the Martians.
So they're like the Donald Trump of like space. Is that what you're telling me? They're like they hate like everything, and they're like,
well, they're just very it's very complicated. Like they just feel like since they are the first, and like it's they're the cradle of where human beings are from. They should be like the top.
So they're all humans, but they're
Yeah.
like different.
They're all humans,
Locations.
and they're in
Okay.
different locations. Like the only aliens, quote unquote, are the proto molecules, who are from an extinct alien race so far. So I don't know if the aliens are alive yet at the time where I'm reading right now. And then like some plant and little like bug life they find in this planet that's galaxies away. I'll talk to how they get to that planet area later. And we move on to the Martians. Like I said, they're very technologically advanced. Their spaceships and stuff like that are far more superior than the Earth's Navy, but again, they don't have as many. And they are terraforming Mars, but it's going very slowly. It won't be done until at least a couple hundred years or so, which makes the people of Mars very unhappy. In Mars, eventually, if you get like where I am in book 5 of the Expanse, Mars is slowly dwindling in population since people are moving out to this gateway, which leads to like another galaxy, which I'll talk about later again. And then lastly, there's the OPA, which is the Outer Planets Alliance, which is led by Fred Johnson, and he used to be a part of the United Nations, and he's called the Butcher of Anderson Station because of there was a station called Anderson Station, and there were these basically immigrants. They took over. These not immigrants, colonists. You could say colonists, and basically they took over, and the UN didn't like that, and basically Fred Johnson killed them all. And he felt really guilty about this, and he left to join the OPA. And the OPA, they basically mine for a living, and they want to be very free and independent from the inner planets. So the OPA is separated by the asteroid belt. Mm-hmm. So there's the outer planets of that, and then the inner planets of the rest, which is like United Nations and then Mars. Besides that, there's also colonies on like moons, like on Eros or on Ganymede, and a main commodity within the series is that water is a very valuable resource, and then there's huge mining ships that go out and mine asteroids for water. And within the first book, called Leviathan Wakes, you meet your main set of characters, which is James Holden, Amos Burton, there's an Alex and a Naomi. I can't remember their last names. Sorry about that. But they're on this. Basically, that ship is full of like all people who wanted to get away from their past lives or their previous fuck ups. It's like James Holden, for example. He's a dishonorable discharge from the United Nations Navy. And so he becomes the second officer of this spaceship, this huge spaceship that goes and mines for water, basically. And anyway, eventually, this crew of people here, the James, Amos, Alex, and Naomi, they get this ship called the Rosa Dante, which they do call from a callback from Don Quixote, as in Rosa Dante was the was it a horse or was it the lady?
I think it was.
No, it was a horse. Yes, Dulcinea was the love.
Yeah.
Rocinante, that's what they named the ship. It's also known as the Rossi. Rocinante is a Mars corvette class ship, and they get it through. I'm trying to avoid as many spoilers here as possible. They get eventually they get onto a Martian warship, and they have to escape because the OPA is attacking the ship, and they are escorted with some Martian Marines to the Rocinante, and eventually the Rocinante becomes their ship through default later on. And a lot of the conflict within this series, in the beginning at least, starts because of this Proto Molecule that some Earth scientists and some other scientists within Mars and OPA, it was found, and this proto molecule fucks shit up a lot, and
So, like, is it like antimatter, where like if it touches real matter, it fucks shit up, or is
it's
like
like it's like creates like it attaches stuff and like creates like it's like a virus, you could say, almost like a disease, and it creates this like new life like form, whatever. It's if I go back to the first book again, I was talking about how it's like there's this detective who's trying to solve he's trying to solve this case of this girl who was missing, and she plays a major part within that role with the proto molecule.
All right.
And like I said, I don't want to spoil too much about that since it's really interesting, and I think you'd be at loss if I spoiled that part.
Jay just really wants everybody to read.
No, I do. It's like the Expanse. Just set aside, Expanse is a really well written book series. It delves with like hard science. It's not like fantastic like I don't know like Starship Troopers, which is really campy, but it's a great fantastic movie, or it's grounded in science. It tries to be really grounded in science.
Awesome.
And reality, and a part of that, for how it's grounded in hard science, is like gravity is a bitch, and so is acceleration. And because of that, they developed within a book series. There's a thing called a crash couch, and a crash couch is where like the foam or gel, whatever, develop like ergonomically molds around your body when you sit into it. And then needles will inject into you once you go in fast enough speed, and those needles are full of this juice that's concocted of different chemicals that will help make sure you won't black out, or your arteries and whatnot won't burst.
It basically gives your body the ability to support higher
speeds without
all right
dying and whatnot. That's just for an example, and it's really cool they do that. And another thing that they have is like for guns, bullets aren't made of metal, because if you're in space, you have a metal. If you're in space, it's either like a spaceship, and you're not gonna have you have a high speed projectile coming towards like the bulkhead of your ship. You don't want that to punch through out of metal, so they made plastic, really high coated plastic, like bullets, like Teflon, whatever, to kind of prevent projectiles going through your ship or whatnot. And what's neat is also that each projectile has its own little propulsion system that guides it forward in space, because in space with 0G, eventually you're if you don't have a force acted upon the object, it's going to just float on its own accord. So the propulsion system within a bullet will move it forward, like here on like Earth, with gravity and whatnot, if that makes any sense. Propel your bullet. What else was I going to say? Back to the proto molecule. Like I said, it fucks shit up. A ton of people die because of this, and a proto molecule is alien in nature, and another part of it is that like certain factions want to make it into a weapon, that way they can take out their rivals, and that doesn't end up too well for them either. Shit. So, as I said earlier, there was a gateway, and this gateway happens later on within the series, and this gateway is a huge game changer for space colonization. First of all, the OPA wants to try to take that over. Well, I mean, all the factions want to try to take that over, and so they have their off foot, and they can claim dominance towards that. In the in the third book, Abaddon's Gate, that's where the gateway is formed, basically, and it's just basically that whole book centers around just the whole struggle between the factions. In my opinion, it's just around the struggle between the factions, and they're trying to get the foothold into it. And later on, like each one of the factions, the OPA, they feel kind of threatened. The splinter groups feel threatened because of if people are going to move out into this gate, which goes to a different galaxy, why do people need to be within the outer belt mining for water while there's whole new different territories where people can settle and don't have to worry about mining for water to provide towards the other planets within the solar system that we live in. For dynamics within the book series, a lot of it's kind of like politics and whatnot. I would have to say, like, if you're going to look for a book about, if you want a book series that's great, if it also has something decent on foreign relations, I think the book series and also the TV show does really well. Just foreign relations and the struggles with that. There is a main character within the book series and in the TV show, not movie, TV show called Christian Avalarsa. I can't pronounce her name, but also she's going to be within a new what's it called? Punisher TV show that's coming out. And besides that, anyway, she is a higher-ranking member within the United Nations, secretary of something I can't remember, and she basically is the figurehead, of the spokesperson for them, and a lot of her, and she talking with like Fred Johnson, who's, again, I said, the leader of the OPA, and to try to forge, a better alliance, or at least ceasefire of certain things. And those two people basically oversee, mostly in the earlier books, they oversee, it was Fred Johnson that oversaw James Holden and his crew of people on the Rosa Dante, and what they did later on within the book series. And then Kristen Avalasa later has more of a hold on them. But let's go to the TV show. The TV show has 2 seasons so far, and a 3rd season is supposed to premiere next year, if I remember right. The TV series has really done really well at adapting the book series, and I think also it's given sci-fi, the sci-fi network, a bit of a redemption as in decent science fiction TV shows to watch lately. And again, I would like to say that it also has decentness and like hard science and whatnot within there, not just random science stuff that it's not based in fact. I know that also that the TV show does have all science fiction TV shows have inaccuracies, but like I'm saying, it's nice to see something that's grounded within reality for a TV show or for science fiction in general. And I think that's about it for everything I have to say about The Expanse.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great series.
It is. I really do recommend people to read the book series or watch a TV show. They're both really good.
I was hoping to talk about the Matrix during the Cyberpunk thing, so I'm a little upset.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. It's too late. Your apologies are too late.
No, but anyway, you guys, if anything, you should check out the website, which is the website for the author and the website for the book series, and we'll put the link down below. So anyway, like, subscribe, and watch our stuff on YouTube and on Podbean. Mm-hmm. This has been the Science Fiction Affliction. I'm Jay Oldenkamp.
Max.
Yeah, I'm a little upset.
Shut up, Ken.
Yep.